Welcome back to Nerf Diagnostic Repair, the show where I demonstrate diagnostic and repair techniques on blasters sent to me by you guys, the fans. I'm your host, Captain Xavier, of course, and today we're going to be working on at least two blasters that I've never really tinkered with before, or never tried to repair this particular issue. First up, we have an Altimator, which is not a blaster I ever thought I would be opening up and getting to see the inside of because I was terrified that it would break. But in this case, we've got one, and I don't know what the problem was, which never bodes well. Oh, I see. Okay. Here's the remaining parts. Hopefully they're all there. So when I first saw an Altimator, I assumed it was like the Titan, air-powered, because I never actually operated it in that first HVZ that I was in, but it is in fact an enormous Springer. And no, it can't take a K26. It is a extension, or a tension spring. So it pulls an enormous spring rather than compressing an enormous spring. So it's the wrong kind of spring for K26, and K26 would be a considerable downgrade for this particular blaster. I wonder if you could do a power stock, though. Put some K26 back here. Probably wouldn't coil properly. Anyway, the way it works is when you lift this lever, it ratchets the whole thing back. And it's a fascinating system. So it pushes this bar back, which moves back the giant plunger rod. And then when you pull the trigger and release it, it goes forward. So it doesn't actually have exactly a catch in the traditional sense of, you know, something that goes back and locks into place. It's a tension latch. And so when you pull it, you're just releasing the tension. So there's no actual catch. So you can release it at any point. Any point during the draw, it catches and you can release it. So I'm not sure what was wrong with this one. It does seem to ratchet back correctly. And it does catch and release correctly, so I'm gonna try just lubricating the whole thing. And seeing if that helps. Since there's no seals, really. I have figured it out. I don't know if it was a manufacturing flaw or just from years of use or what have you, but the trigger was being bumped by the shell just enough to keep it from properly catching. So I dremeled it out so that it's no longer touching the shell, and now it seems to catch. Fully primed. I don't know if you had a rocket or not, but I will be sending this one back with it, just so you definitely have at least one good functioning rocket. I may even make a second one, so you have one to put right there. I've got all the parts. I need to do a video on how I make these, so I'll probably make another one, and you can have them both. Lovely. Alright, so that works. So in this case, it was a matter of working out how the mechanism actually worked, which is the lever forces back the plunger rod, and then the a tension lock locks it in place, and if it's even a little bit not locked, it wouldn't catch. So clearly the issue was with the shell, and I just need to figure out where the shell was causing an issue, figured it out, dremeled it out, and now it works. Fantastic! On to the next one. Up next we have Adrianna from Foam Blast's Long Shot, which has a sealed brass breech in it, and it's not working. So I have never actually successfully built a brass breech. I started building one for my patron Jomo, and never quite finished it. So here's my chance to take a look at what they're supposed to look like. Alright. Well, that's not supposed to do that. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure whatever that is isn't supposed to be in there either. Unless something ain't right. I'm reasonably certain this is supposed to be attached to this. But it wasn't. So that could be the issue right there. This appears to be a plunger head pad. I'm going to trim it and glue it back on. Yeah, well, hopefully that was it. It was just a matter of that plunger head was stuck. I fixed it. Fixed it so well I blew the head right off that dart. Alright, so yeah, the issue was that the plunger head padding had come loose and was sealing the plunger tube. So it sounded like it was working, it fired and all of that, but no power was actually coming out because it was sealed. So, fixed that, glued that back on, trimmed it a little bit so it's less likely to get caught and snagged like that. Also, the innermost barrel on the brass breech was sliding around a little bit, so I shored that up a little bit more. And, yeah. Looks like it's working. Alright, let's test it one more time just to be sure. Yeah, it's terrifying. Alright, it lives! Problem solved. I will ship this back. Alright, on to the next one. Up next we have an Alpha Trooper that has some maladies, including but not limited to a complete lack of screws, apparently. But they were having issues with it catching. It's got an Orange ModWorks kit in here, supposedly. But no spring. He didn't send me the spring. How am I supposed to test this with no spring? I ask you. He's also apparently glued the plunger head in. Near as I can tell, the plunger is glued. It's glued. Why did you glue the plunger head? Also looks like you tried to remove the AR and busted the bolt or the plunger tube. Seriously, how did you glue the plunger head into the plunger? And more importantly, why? It doesn't seem practical at all. Aha! I didn't know any better. I'd say you replaced the O-ring with one that was too big and herniated it. Okay, well, let's put some darts through it. Okay, well, after getting the plunger unstuck and replacing the O-ring with one a little bit better size, and replacing the catch with a 3D printed one that could still use a little bit of sanding, but it will now catch. It'll shoot darts. I also replaced the O-ring on the bolt, which was missing. It is now at least technically functional, which is better than it was before. This is kind of an important lesson here. If you're going to send me something to fix, you do need to send me all the parts, because I may not have them, and if I don't have them, I can't fix it. Luckily, I did have O-rings, so I got it at least functional again. Now, he said that he had been putting an orange ModWorks spring in it, but didn't send me the spring as far as I could tell, so I can't really tell him whether or not the upgraded catch is going to work with the spring that he has. If you just put in a heavier spring and it's not catching either, generally that means that your catch is not sufficient for the spring load. Either the spring needs to be replaced or the catch itself needs to be upgraded, either with a 3D printed one or a metal one. In this case, the spring does seem quite heavy, but I have replaced it with the 3D printed catch. I believe the catch that I've printed I got off Thingiverse and was designed by BullitinWilliam. The link will be down in the description. I used it in a previous upgrade, and it seems to be working here. Like I said, it could use a little more filing, but it seems to be catching fine currently. He can file it when he puts his heavier spring in, if he has any idea where that is. But I am going to call this functional. I'm going to go ahead and send it back with this spring. I think it's a stock Alpha Trooper spring that I had in my bin. That way, worst case scenario, at least it's coming back fully functional. Alright, it lives. The takeaway here, don't do whatever this guy did. I still have no idea what he did to that plunger head, whether it was just the fact that the O-ring had herniated, but I'm pretty sure there was some glue involved in there. Don't lose your O-rings, don't lose your spring, and if you're going to send me something to repair, send me all the parts. Alright, let's take a look at his second one. Hopefully it's better. Alright, up next we have a Turbo Advance that is not advancing. Apparently they somehow fouled up the rotation mech that allows you to rotate the plunger head so it'll fire the inner diameter darts. Alright, I found the issue with the rotation mech. There's a peg that is what locks it in the up or down position, and it was misaligned, and then they tried clamping the shell down around it, and so it was misaligning everything. And I've realigned it. Alright, so we now have it working. One other issue I ran into is one of the major gears that's in there doesn't either they broke off a tooth while trying to force it to rotate previously, or it inherently doesn't have a full set of teeth on one of the inner sprockets. And so if you don't line that lack of tooth up in such a way that it never actually engages the teeth of the other gear, it'll slide. You'll go to rotate it and it won't actually rotate. So, like I said, I don't know if that is a feature or if that was something where they broke it, but I had to take it back apart and fix that, but it appears to be rotating now. Beautiful. Alright. Well, the takeaway on this one is make sure if you take something apart, you get everything realigned properly when you put it back together. I was able to fairly quickly notice that the plate that held that little locking nub in place wasn't properly seated, and so something underneath was clearly misaligned, and I opened it up and I found it, and yeah, now it works beautifully. Often, if something is not moving, it is probably the culprit. Quite often, if something isn't moving, the culprit is something that is specifically designed to keep it from moving. This is why we often remove locks. is to keep them from accidentally locking things when we don't want them locked. And in this case, that is kind of a lock. It keeps this from rotating too easily or easily getting bumped. There's a little notch that just kind of holds it, just so that you have to mean it when you rotate it. But it had gotten misaligned, and so it couldn't rotate when you wanted it to. So there you have it. That's 4 blasters, all fully functional now, or as functional as I can make them with the parts I was given. Ah, get back on there. There we go. And, yeah. So if you're interested in having your blaster featured here, if you've got something that's not working and you just can't figure it out, email address is in the description. It's my commission email address. Send me an email. We can discuss it. And if it's something that I think I can fix or that I'm willing to try to fix, then I'll say, yeah, go ahead and send it to me. And then you can. You cover the shipping cost to me. I cover the shipping cost back. So it doesn't cost anything other than that. Though if you want to send me some Skittles or some Twix, you go right ahead. But it is not necessary. And yeah, hopefully this will help some of you or give you guys an idea of how to go about diagnosing things and checking things and making sure things are working. Yeah, thank you for everyone who volunteered to send me stuff. And thank you guys for watching.